Hello, welcome to Math with Mr. Dobrescu, to the rescue. Let's continue today with SBAC review part 4 so that we can get ready for the state test and be well prepared. Let's take a look at this problem here. Aaron sells jackets online. He adds $4.75 per jacket. So for every jacket he sells, he pays $404.75 per jacket, and to every purchase for shipping. So for every jacket Aaron sells, he pays an additional $4.75 per shipping. Keep that in mind. And he collected a total of $188.75. $188.75 selling 5 jackets. How many jackets? 5 jackets. So he sold 5 jackets, but for every jacket he paid $4.75 per every jacket. Okay? And then the question is, which equation could be used to calculate the sale price J of each jacket? So now this is a multiple choice question, and we have 4 different options here, and we are looking for the equation that satisfies our problem. So let's take a look at the problem again. He pays $4.75 per jacket. So per each jacket he pays $4.75, and then he is selling 5 jackets. So we need to multiply 5 times 4.75 plus a jacket, right? Because for each jacket he pays an additional 4.75, but he has 5 jackets for a total of 188.75. So answer A is the only answer that gives us satisfy that information, because here we have J plus 4.75 times 5 jackets, because he's selling 5 jackets, and then for a total equals 188.75. None of other options is telling us that information. Here is 5 times J. This doesn't make sense. Okay, here is 5 times 4.75. Only 4.75 is in a parenthesis. Both of these are supposed to be in a parenthesis, J plus 4.75. So this cannot be the answer. And then the last one, we have 5 plus 4.75. That's not correct. Supposed to be J, the jacket, plus the shipping times 5, supposed to equal 188.75. Pay attention to this type of questions and make sure you really understand the information from the problem before you make a decision which multiple choice to choose. Let's take a look at another problem here. This question has 2 parts. Answer part A and then answer part B. Let's take a look at part A. What is the value of square root of 64? What is the value of square root of 64? Square root, okay? Square root means we are going to break down 64 into 2 numbers. And those 2 numbers are 8 times 8. So we have square root of 8 times 8, or square root of a square, right? Square root of a square. And square root of a square is just from these 2 pairs, only 1/8 comes out. So the answer is B. Pay attention to this type of problem, right? What is the square root? Part A, they are asking us for the square root, which means we are breaking 64 down into 2 numbers. 8 times 8, and the answer is just 8, because 8 times 8 equals 64. Let's take a look at part B. Now the question is, what is the value of the cube root of 64? So in this case we have cube root of 64. So now we need to break down 64 into 3 numbers that multiply together would give us 64. And the answer is A, right? Because cube root of 64 is the same thing as cube root of 4 times 4 times 4. Because 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 is 64. So from all of these three pairs, only 1 4 comes out, because this is the cube root. Here we form groups of 3. We break down the number into 3 numbers that multiply together would give you 64. And then when you extract the cube root from that under the cube root, and when you extract the number, it's only a 4. Only a single 4 comes out in the answer. Pay attention and see the difference between square root and cube root. Okay? Let's take a look at another word problem here. This question has 2 parts. Again, part A and then answer part B. Dan has 5 coins. How many coins does Dan have? 5 coins. So very important information. He has 5 coins in his pocket. Each coin is either a nickel or a quarter. Remember, a nickel is 0.05 cents and a quarter is 0.25 or 25 cents. 5 cents and 25 cents. Pay attention, very important information. The total value of all the coins in his pocket is 65 cents or 0.65. Here the nickels are 0.05 and then the quarters are 0.25. Very important information we need to know right from the problem. And then the question is part A, which equation can be used to find the numbers of quarters? Okay, so on this slide here, we are going to create a system of equations. And the system of equations is this one here. The nickels for the quarters are 5. Because in the problem is telling us that he has 5 coins in his pocket. 5 coins made up of nickels and quarters. So the N plus the Q equals the 5. One more time. N plus Q equals 5. Right here. N plus Q equals 5. And now we know that the nickels again are 0.05. And we do not know how many nickels are there, but we know together they are 5. So because of that reason, we can call that 0.05. Let's take a look here at the answer here, at the second equation, 0.05 n, because we do not know how many are there yet, plus, and then we do not know how many quarters are there, but quarters are 0.25, so now we have plus 0.25 q, but all together, the value of the money is 0.65 or 0.65 or 65 cents. And this is our system of equations. Make sure with this type of problem, you create a system of equations just like I did right here. And now, because one of the multiple choice answers, right? One of the multiple choice, it was, let's take a look here. One of the multiple choice answers supposed to tackle that information right here. And it gives us this information right here. This was one of the multiple choice for part A. This was one of the multiple choice for part A. And because of that reason, in order to come to this answer, we had to solve for n first in the first equation by subtracting q on both sides. So if we subtract q on both sides, we get n equals 5 minus q. And then with that information, we are going to substitute 5 minus q into this n right here. So we are going to substitute 5 minus q into this n right here. And then we are going to come up with this option that is part of one of our multiple choice answers for part A. This equation right here, 0.05 times 5 minus q, because instead of n we put 5 minus q, plus 0.25q equals 0.65. And that was one of the answers for the multiple choice answers. So you really have to pay attention what the problem is given us in the multiple choice answers and make sure you do that, right? You solve for n and then substitute the n, the value into the n, and get this equation. Once we are here in part B now, they are asking us what is the number of quarters Q in Dan's pocket. Now, because we have this equation right here, we can simply solve for Q. So here we have to use the distributive property. We have the equation 0.05 times pi minus Q plus 0.25 Q equals 65. This is our equation we got after we substituted the n, the value of n into this n right there. Now n is out, we don't have n anymore. And now we are going to solve for the Q. So in order to solve for the Q, we are going to use the distributive property, and we have 0.05 times 5, which is 0.25. And then 0.05 times negative Q, positive times negative becomes a negative 0.05 Q plus 0.25 Q equals 0.65. And now let's combine the like terms. Let's combine negative 0.05 Q plus 0.25 Q, and all of this gives us 0.20 Q. So then we have 0.25 plus 0.20 Q equals 0.65. And now we need to bring 0.25 to the other side of the equation so that we can isolate the Q to this side of the equation. So we subtract 0.25 from both sides of the equations. This cancels out. And then we get 0.20 Q equals 0.40, because 0.65 minus 0.25 gives us 0.40. And finally, we divide both sides by 0.20, and then we get 2 as the final answer. Because this will cancel out, simplify 0.20 divided by 0.20 becomes 1Q, and 0.40 divided by 0.20, if we move the decimal to the right 2 places, we get 40 divided by 20, cancel the 0, and then we get 4 divided by 2 equals 2. Okay, so the final answer is Q. So the answer here, what is the number of quarters in Dan's pocket? He has 2 quarters in his pocket. Again, this is a word problem that required us to do it step by step, but first we needed to create a system of equations and then manipulate the information, solve this equation, and get the Q. Let's take a look at our last problem here. The question has 2 parts again. Answer part A, and then answer part B. Okay? So use the figure below to answer the question. And here we have 2 lines again, and they are telling us that these 2 lines are parallel. Line M, let's call this M, and this N. They are telling us that line M and line N are parallel. They never touch, but they are crossed by a transversal. Okay? Different things are happening here when a line crosses, when 2 parallel lines are crossed by a transversal. We have different angles that are the same. These angles are the same. These angles are the same. Opposite angles are congruent and the same. Okay? Then we have corresponding angles that are the same. Corresponding angles. Alternate interior angles that are the same. Alternate interior. And then alternate exterior angles that are the same. Because we've learned that before about these angles when 2 parallel lines are crossed by a transversal. Let's take a look at part A. Which relationship describes angle C and angle G? Let's look at angle C and angle G. Those 2 angles. And we know that those 2 angles are called corresponding angles. And corresponding angles are the same. They have the same value, the same angle, the same, they are the same. Because take a look. When this line, this transversal crosses the 2 parallel lines, you see that it crosses the lines at the same angles. You see that? Because they are parallel lines. So then these angle C and angle G, even as a visual, they look the same. but they have a name. They are called corresponding angles. So let's see if either of these answers are giving us corresponding angles. Alternate exterior angles. They cannot be alternate exterior. These are alternate exterior. Angle A, angle G, okay, angle B, angle G. Alternate and then exterior, they're outside of the parallel lines. So this cannot be the answer because they're not alternate exterior. Let's take a look at option D. Alternate interior angles. It cannot be either because alternate interior would be angle D and angle E, or angle C and angle F. Alternate interior, but these are not alternate interior. Angle C and angle G, like we said before, are called corresponding angles. Let's take a look at option C. Corresponding angles, and this is the correct answer. Angle C and angle G are called corresponding. Okay, because angle C is beneath this parallel line, and the same angle G is beneath that parallel line once this transversal crosses those parallel lines, because it crosses at the same angles right there. And of course, option D is called angles are vertical angles, and that's not true, because vertical angles are opposite from each other. E and H are vertical, G and F are vertical, A and D are vertical, C and B are vertical. But in this case, angle C and angle G are not vertical, they are corresponding. Let's take a look at part B now. Which relationship describes angles A and angles H? Okay, angles A and angle H. So let's take a look. Angle A, so let's use a different color here. Angle A and angle H. Okay, now we are talking about. We just talked about this before. Angle A is on this side of the transversal, but is outside of the parallel lines. And angle H is on the other side of the transversal, but also outside of the parallel lines. And we call those alternate exterior angles. Please remember that. Very, very important information. Alternate, because they alternate. One is on this side and the other angle is on the other side, but they are outside of the parallel lines, which means alternate exterior angle. Let's see which one, if we have that option. Alternate exterior angles right there. A is the answer. B would be alternate interior angles, and we talked about that, not true. Corresponding angles, those would be corresponding C, G, or A, E, B, F, D, H, and they are not corresponding. And vertical angles, they are not, because vertical angles, like we talked about it, they are across from each other. So the final answer is alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior angles. Thank you so very much for watching those part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. And now I'm really, really confident that you will do really well on the state test, SBAC test, and move forward in your mathematical adventure and be very successful. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share this video, those 4 parts, with your friends so they will get ready and prepared for the state test. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video. All the best to you.